can play the Hello. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. I am Fira. I am one of and part of the Endeavour team here in Endeavour Malaysia. I hope you guys are having a good Friday. So today we have our final Blitzscaling circle, which is a bi-weekly initiative that we organize in conjunction with our Scale Up Endeavour program. So Endeavour's Scale Up program is designed to guide entrepreneurs through the complexities of business process building, structural placement, and refining the business focus of late-stage startup entrepreneurs. Some of our previous sessions, which includes speakers such as Chris Xie, the co-author himself of Blitzscaling, Eric Chang, co-founder and group CEO of Kasem, Hendy Sutiono, founder and CEO of Baba Rafi Enterprise, Roland Ross, CEO of Kumu, Christian Menon, CEO and co-founder of Bukukas. So if you've missed out any of these sessions that we had, feel free to visit our YouTube page as all the recordings are there. And for today's session itself, which is our final ever session for this year, we have Malaysia's fresh milkman, Loi Tuan Ee, founder and managing director of the Holstein Milk Company. So just a brief introduction about Loi. Loi, a naturalist at heart, Loi's path to Holstein Milk Company began when he immersed himself in the agriculture after years in the corporate world. He started by growing palm oil trees, dragon fruit, and rearing arowana fish on his 83 acres of land he owned in Johor. By 2019, he was bottling goat's milk to sell, but producing on a commercial scale was a big challenge, and retailing it at a high price deterred customers. Noticing that many Malaysian brands were selling products made from reconstituted or powdered milk, he decided to purchase a small plot of land in Johor itself and import 60 Holstein Jersey cows from Australia, setting up his company Farm Fresh Milk. So from over having 60 cows when he first started, today Loi has over 6,000 cows. So as we unpack Loi's scaling strategy for today's session, we have the one and only, also our Endeavour entrepreneur, Wai Han, the co-founder and CEO of Juristech, to moderate this session. So before we get into the session itself, it would be great if we can turn on our cameras, say hi to everyone, and just take a group photo. Okay. I'll start with page number 1. 1, 2. Second page. 1, 2. Okay. Thank you everyone. So without further ado, I would like to invite our moderator, Wai Han. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks everyone. So I promise not to grill Loi, but I'm not sure that I can fulfill that promise or not. But anyway, just to start, right, I will say that I am a great fan of the milkman Loi, right? Because I think I met him in 2016, and I still remember that time. Maybe my daughter, she was just like 1 or 2 years old, my youngest daughter, and then he was telling me, that how good his milk is, and I should not go for milk powder. That the milk powder has so much sugar and all that. And guess what? I never migrated my daughter to anything except farm fresh. So I am a true believer. And then the other thing that happened was when the okay. Okay. The other thing that happened was during the lockdown, right? Because I stay in Kajang, there was no farm fresh. Seriously, I just went everywhere searching for it, and I can't travel more than 10 km, right? So then I actually called Lloyd and said, "Hey, how do I get hold of your farm fresh?" So he passed me his dealer, and I got to buy in some form of bulk mode or something like that. But I actually went but now, Lloyd, seriously, every single grocer in Kajang is selling farm fresh. So that's actually how well you are doing lah. So I'm very, very proud of your journey. So I'm gonna ask you some very simple questions first. Is that I know that you spent like 20 years of your life, heading the marketing side of a carton packaging company. It's like you are doing what do you call that, packaging cartons and all that, and you were successful then. But then how do you actually end up doing what you're doing now and start this entrepreneurial journey all over again? Maybe you can explain.
Yeah, I think thanks, Raihun. Thank you for your support. I'm glad. I wish I can more customer like you around in Malaysia. so okay. I think what happened is that like what you rightly pointed out, I was in the packaging industry for very long time, 20 years. With my former boss family's company. So I think there are a couple of things that prompted me to actually move on. Was that I think one is that the packaging business is quite a tough business because I think towards the 2000, right? I think in the 80s and 90s was quite good because you have a lot of electronic companies around, the television makers, the audio compose and all this. So by the time when they start to move on, every time we start to lose customer, and then being in the development section business, I find it very challenging to sustain the business. So you always have the capacity being taken out, and then you need to find new customers. So I think it's very tiring in that sense. So the other thing is also, I think my former company is very family oriented company. It's essentially a lot of family members, the sister, the brother-in-law, niece and nephews and things like that. So it's a bit hard to manage, I think. But before they go IPO, when we were private, still not so bad. Yeah. So in 2003, we listed in Bursa, and 2005 we migrated to main board. I think once you are a PLC, it's a bit hard to balance between comparatively like a private company, between the families and the business, right? Because you are private. But once you go IPO, it's a bit different. The accountabilities are a bit different. So I think that also one of the reasons I decided, two things, So I thought, I time to move on, to find somewhere, have the greener pasture. In this case, agriculture has always been in my heart. I always like to do that. And that's how, I take a different path. Some of my friends was thinking that I'm probably having a midlife crisis. At that age, you are well paid, you're doing well. Why would you want to go and do something very differently? But that was the decision that I made.
Yeah, I think it's very inspiring that you can take a plunge, right? Not at this young age, or you see most of these people that are here, maybe they're very young and they said, let's just start a company, But it's interesting that you decide to go into agriculture. I know that time you were thinking of growing palm oil trees, dragon fruit, and rearing arowana fish, right? But how do you then come about to buy 60 cows? But before you answer that, I will tell you that when I was young, right, and I'm sure that you guys, when you were kids, you look at cows, the cows in the storybooks look so nice, like the Holstein cows, right? white color with black and brown patches. But the cows that we see in Malaysia are completely brown. So if you tell me that you're getting milk from them, I'm actually a bit worried. But I know that you imported these Holstein cows. So what made you decide to, suddenly import cows from growing palm oil trees, dragon fruit, etc.?
So what happened is that when I decided to move on, I think as I do a few things, the dragon fruits line, the fish line, things like that, and then we also have the goats, for example. So that's how actually I started that learning curve in agribusiness. But what I wanted to do, set out to do, was very much because of my former business experience. I feel that if you are going to spend efforts and time, to do something, you might also want to build something that is sustainable, that is resilient. And my conclusion was quite straightforward, essentially, to produce food, for example, right? Something that the consumer will have to continue to have it. And the dairy experience through goat actually sort of like set the stage for me to move on to do the dairy cow. I think because at the point of time we realized that in the supermarket, it was not that difficult to differentiate your product, because essentially 95% of those products in the supermarket shelf are all made from milk powders, right? So when I wanted to do goat, my siblings, they all were thinking that it's not a bad idea, because there isn't much goat's milk in the market, because it's very, very niche, right? Whereas when you talk about dairy cow's milk, gosh, you go to the supermarket shelf, you're spoiled with the choices. There's so many brands, and you don't even know which one to pick. So you were saying that, oh, it might be a different landscape if you go into dairy cow, but I was convinced in the sense that our products are very different. It is fresh, and if you taste it, you can really taste the difference. So I thought, on that basis, I still sort of charge ahead to do the dairy cow. Yeah.
So Loi, you see, the thing is that from looking at your background, right, I'm sure that you don't really have that much experience with cows before this, right? So how do you get the knowledge, right, to decide to jump into and how do you know what type of cows to select? Because I remember you told me about the grade of the milk and the science behind it. So how do you decide to do that and gain knowledge on that? Yeah.
You see, when I first started, I'm just like any other dairy farmers. Every farmer wants to have more milk from their cow. So you see, I was even naive enough to name my company after the Holstein Milk Company, because the black and white cow, the lovely cow, is black and white, so it's named after Holstein. So that was a very, very steep learning curve. When I go in, I began to realize that, gosh, it is really difficult, because the breed itself, makes a lot of difference, in the sense that, God have created this animal as a temperate animal, and they live in Australia or Europe or the cold climate. But when you bring them in, right, they really struggle. So the initial years, the learning curve was really, really steep for us. When we started it, I began to realize how, come afternoon, you can see all those ladies struggling, because of the heat and humidities. So that is one of the setback that I began to learn, that dairy farming, the reason that there isn't any success cases in Malaysia in the past is because it is indeed a very, very challenging industry. So that lead me to to think about how am I supposed, if I were to do this well, and of course the milk tastes nice, right? But then again, to produce in a larger scale, if you cannot solve that part of the problem, then it's very hard for us to move forward, because you can't change weather, you can't move Malaysia to another location, right? So this is something that we have to learn to live with it. So instead of changing the environment to suit our cow, we actually go on to look for genetic that suit our environment. So that was a very big reverse, that we learned through the initial year. Yeah.
Oh, so are your cows still the same type of breed as the 60? Is it Holstein cows, or now it's different? Because you say you have learned about the genetic breed that's suitable.
Okay, so this is that, to put it in a layman term, I think easier for you to understand, right? So it's like you cross Shah Rukh Khan with Nicole Kidman, right? So you want to get the offspring that is used to this weather. So what happened is that in the late 60s and early 70s, the Queensland government actually developed a breed. They actually brought in the Sahiwal cow from India, which is the Bos indicus, to cross with the Holstein, the Frisian in Australia, to come out with the tropical breed. So that formed the base of the genetic of that development. They actually developed that man for the Northern Territory, but they don't really take so after 25 years of the genetic development. So we will have the privilege that 7-8 years ago we actually bought that genetic exclusively. I was in search for the breed, and that led me to Australia to meet up with this guy. So we bought a lot of cow from him, and so happened he's migrating to Mexico. So he said, Loi, if you were to do dairy in a tropic, in a large scale to be sustainable, you really need this breed, you know. So he actually made an offer, and we quickly bought over the company. So I was fortunate that I have a good friend in Australia, which incidentally is also my partner now. Adam Pretty is my partners now. I get to know him because I buy cow from him. And then I call Adam. I say, Adam, Steve, company want to sell. Would you mind to come in with me or not? I say, I want to buy over this company. So that's how Adam and me become partners. So we bought over the whole genetic assets that essentially has about 1,200 embryos, and they have about 130,000 doses of the semen being collected, frozen. So we use that as a breed to actually use the semen to cross the Australian cow. So most of those Australian cow that we bring back to Malaysia, they are all in calf to AFS in their stomach. So they're pregnant to AFS. So when they come here, they calf down. So their daughters, you know, is far more valuable to us as opposed to the mother. The mother is with the proper farming condition, for example, they are still doing well, but it's a bit of a struggle for that as compared to their daughters, because their daughter has inherited 25% of the tropical blood. So that is a game changer for us, actually.
Wow, that sounds so scientific. The quality, I would say, of the milk, right? Because I also rear kefir at home, you know, and then and then I have to put milk on the kefir, you know, on a weekly basis and all that. And I actually tried it with Farm Fresh, and I tried it with other milk. Farm Fresh is actually better. So after that, I always use Farm Fresh for my kefir one. So how do you ensure that, like you said, you know that this is a good quality? How did you actually know that it was good quality?
Yeah, you see, this is one thing, you know, there's a saying, you know, sometimes less is actually more. Yeah. So what happened is that, you know, the same cow that if she resides in Australia with the good weather, she'll probably do 30 liters of milk a day, all right? And then the same genetic that you bring back to Malaysia, you will be very happy if you give you 15 to 18 liters. So because of that, the cows that we raise down here, although they are all Australian genetic, it's like a if you want to drive a Ferrari in the estate, right? Genetically they are able to produce 30 liters, but the environment doesn't allow them to perform. Same thing if you put the Ferrari into a real estate, they can never have a chance to cruise 300 kilometers an hour, right? So this is the problem. So I think what happened is that when they produces less, generally our cows that we brought in from Australia here, they actually produce higher butter fat because less, you see. So because of that, I think our milk also tastes creamier generally. If you were to drink Farm Fresh milk, you realize that, you know, it's a lot more tastier than sometimes in the overseas milk, for example. So I think that itself, we track our milk composition very, very carefully, because that formed the part in terms of the protein and fat ratio is very important. That also, the feed also play a role to ensure that the milk are consistently tasty. Yeah.
So when you started the company, right, Holstein Milk, do you really have this ambition to make it big? I mean, was that even in your vision?
Honestly, it wasn't. I think I never dreamt that the company will reach to this scale. You know, at a point of time with the 80 over acres of land, you know, you were thinking that you wanted to do something that you enjoy, number one, and then if the company can make some money, well, that is good. You know, so you just build out the company, and then agriculture. I always believe that, you know, a lot of farmers are not doing well. A lot of farmers are struggling is because the agriculture itself, the produce itself is very difficult to manage, number one. You know, to do the farming part of it is very hard. A lot of hard work, a lot of very laborious as well, right? And then a lot of them actually, they can go on to produce some very good produce. And most of the cases are very, very perishable, all right? And then they don't have the marketing. So when you send to Pasar Borong, Pasar Select, I tell you, you get nothing out of it, So a lot of them, they don't try. So I think fortunately, I come from a marketing backdrop. I know branding is important. I know integration is important. So with that backdrop, basically what we did is that whatever that we produce, we actually match the market ourselves. So we actually, distribute ourselves. So that's how set us apart in a sense that if today, if I were to do dairy farming and I have to sell my milk to F&N or Dutch Lady, for example, right, without a brand on my own, I think I will be at their mercy as well, right? So that itself, I think, set us apart in the sense that with Farm Fresh branding, we are able to have to control our own destiny, so to speak. So but I didn't expect it to reach to such a scale that the consumers are really loving us for that matter. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the focus on quality was good, but the thing is, I realized right on the packaging, right, you don't tout a lot about the breed of your cows, how you control the quality and all those things, and yet people actually believe in the brand. So maybe you can share about your branding and marketing strategy.
I think in terms of branding, one thing that come out of us in a sense that I think our very core value is very important because you see, we are a FMCG company, right? So when you are doing a food product to your customer, right? I think that the very fact is that you will have to ensure that what you produce, that you fit it to somebody else, it has to be something that is healthy and the well-being of the customer have to be taken care of. I mean, if I today produce something that I myself or restraining my family members from taking because it was a crap product, right? You're putting all sort of crap inside there, tastes alike, and then the thing looks alike and things like that. So if you yourself dare not to eat, I mean, how could you sell it to other people, right? So I think that formed the very base of our company core value in the sense that whatever that we produce, it has to be it's nutritious and it's really can be good for your customer. So I think that itself has been out. So if you look at our product, none of our Farm Fresh product consists of any preservative or put a coloring. For example, you can see some product look green, look blue, look purple. These are all no good, for your kids, for example. So why would you want to put something that that you can attract the kids, yes, but then is it good for them? So I think that value that we hold very true. Over the years, I think probably consumer begin to realize that that itself, sort of like continue to reinforce our brand throughout the market. Yeah.
Okay, so I think since you're talking about branding here, right? You see, the market, I think at that time was more inclined to consume imported milk. Like they think imported milk is much better. So how do you shift the consumer mindset into drinking fresh and local milk? Do you have to do something?
Yeah, I think what we did is that in the early years, right, I think I spent a lot of time on the selling floor. I will, on my weekend, I will be in Cold Storage or Giant in JB. And Azmi will be in KL Maidin and whatever outlet that we be. And we do a lot of sampling, right, to actually tell the customer to taste the difference, for example, and why local is better. So, of course, the initial year is a bit tough, right? It was a bit difficult because all this perception of imported being more premium, the Australian importers are more premium, and things like that. I mean, I'm not saying that they're no good, right? But if you really taste it, our product is as good, if not better. So I think that part of that. So at one stage, I remember we got about 50, 60 promoter stations across all the Malaysian key outlets, whether it's in Aeon or in Cold Storage or all these high traffic outlets. So we just continue to do sampling, and then to word of mouth, we at that point of time, you don't have this social media, digital and things like that. So basically, it's just really word of mouth, and we don't spend any money on any advertisement until I think only 3 years ago we start to go into some marketing campaign. In other words, the advertisement spending. But prior to that, it's really just word of mouth. The mother drink is nice, we inform the daughter, or maybe the daughter will inform the friend. So just like that, that we actually grow. Yeah.
Actually, that might be some of the best way of marketing. I remember that when we started our company, it's also the same thing. We just need to do a good job somewhere, and then after that, from word of mouth, our other clients are actually coming to us. So out of curiosity, right? That means that when you first started Farm Fresh, your first 100 customers, you actually got them via channels?
No, I think the 100 customer we are talking about, essentially, I think it is all consumer down, right? When Giant given us the opportunity to be our first outlet to actually listen our Farm Fresh, right? So I remember in the early days, because our processing equipments are also not the top notch, right? So our shelf life is also quite short. So in that sense, it was a bit of struggle for us to actually listing the product, and then your shelf spacing. Like now, I mean, of course, today you go, 60-70% of the shelf space is dominated by us. But in the past, you have like 1 or 2 bottles, and if you don't pay attention, you can't even see it. So we need to be there to introduce our product. One thing that Azmi and I both get very motivated at that point of time, it's really, really very demoralizing, honestly, because the earlier days is really hard on us. Cash burn rate was quite high. We are losing money because we haven't reached the scale yet, right? So what happened is that because I go almost every weekend to the outlet, so I've started to see the repeat customer coming back. It's like, well, after one, you see the same auntie coming back to pick up, you see the same uncle come back. That gave us a lot of comfort when we ask them, oh, you enjoy the meal? Yeah, my daughters like the meal. It's very nice. So once we hear that, heard kind of comment, feedback from customer, then I knew, Azmi and I knew that we have the right product in our hand. Now it's just a question of scaling it up and reaching out to the wider market. So along the way, it's hard. We had to burn some cash, because you can remember in the early days when we go to Giant, per drop, you'll be happy if you drop 250 ringgit worth of product. Abang kasih issue PO, kasih issue PO. And then he will issue a few cartons, and then you happily, then your same van, we have 1 ton chill truck that in KL distributing like 1 month 30 over 1,000 ringgit worth of Farm Fresh product, because you drop all the drop point is like 100-200 ringgit, 200 to 300. Today, the same truck, we can drop up to 250,000 to 300,000 worth of product, because you only need 1 chill truck go out. You probably need only 2 locations or 3 locations. The whole truck is full. They can come back for another trip. So I think that is the earlier challenges now.
So I think there's a question from Salihuddin, because just now we talked about the product, market fit, and branding. Right now, in terms of scaling, for fundraising, the question is that I would like to know, how do you manage your funding needs in the early days of Farm Fresh, from pasta malam days to having your own farm and expanding it by leaps and bounds as it is today?
Yeah, I think that was, thank God, we were very fortunate. And at the point of time when we first started, so happened, I think during that time was Patla, right? They were saying that agriculture is a business. So incidentally, Khazanah also supporting the government strategy of investing into the strategic interests of certain agriculture sector. So through one of my IB friends, the bankers friend from my former company, actually rang me, hey, Loi, this Khazanah is looking to invest into some of these agriculture companies. Would you want to talk to them? I said, of course. Because in our business, the early years, to raise money, first you're a startup, and to make it worse, you want to buy cow, and after the NFC, anybody thought about cow, everybody ran away, the national feedlot scandal. So that made funding on livestock is even more difficult. So I think to go to bank to say that you want to borrow money to buy lembu, I tell you, it's very hard. So we were very fortunate at the point of time Khazanah actually comes in. So with Khazanah backing, I think that was a bit of game changer for us. We gotten the necessary funding to come in, and then we're able to scale a bit from there on. And over the years, Khazanah have played a tremendous role in helping us, securing land, for example, and all these sort of things. So besides helping in a financial support, they also play a very important role in the sense that whenever we got problem, they lend us their year, and then we tell, hey, I need this, I need that. So they actually walk the office for us. So I think we are very grateful for that. Yeah. And then I think 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, we were scaling it up again. This round was, we wanted to go into the UHT segment because initially we started mostly on chill category. We are only on modern trade, all the supermarkets, Aeon, Tesco alike. We wasn't in the rural market. We wasn't in mini market because mini market, all the chillers are not cold, for example, right? If you put farm fresh product, dah lah, you tak ada preservative, and then with the fridge running at 15 degrees C, right? Within a few days, our milk will go sour already. So that's why we have very measured growth in that sense the earlier years because we don't have the UHT ambient product. So the second round that we did with Diamond from Singapore, that we raised another second round, 60 million from them, and that money was actually utilized to expand our second processing line that created our UHT ambient range as well as our investment to Australia, because over the years we were so reliant on Australian ingredients. So in other words, however much I produce down here, I just can't keep up the growth, right? So we go to Australia for two reasons. Number one is for a genetic reason. We need to have a farm that be able to multiply the AFS that we needed and send back to Malaysia for us to grow. And at the same time, now we actually have a processing plant there as well to actually process the milk and continue to ship back to support Malaysian growth. Yeah.
So when you deciding on these investors, do you have to decide whether they are strategic investors? How do you decide? Because even though Diamond came to you and all that, or is it anybody with funding? How do you decide who you want to partner with?
Yeah, I think Khazanah it was actually lucky for us to have Khazanah on board because they are our sovereign fund, right? Country sovereign fund, and you also know that Khazanah, if they were to support you, I think they are really a very, very good partner. With regards to Diamond, I think it was more in terms of the speed they're able to close the deal. All right, because at that point of time we already grown, we are already we are doing quite well already. So we just need to continue to scale and needed some new money because I've gone through 1997 with my former company as to see how the financial collapse, some of the very, very big company that you admire, they actually tanked, so that really have got a stigma in me. So I always worried about high gearing, borrowing and things like that, borrow yourself to the brim. And if anything goes wrong, you can't leave the fight for another day, you just tank already. So I would rather opted to raise some money in a sense that to manage my gearing at a more comfortable level, but I don't mind to share, the income with others. So in this case, I think Diamond is strictly two considerations. One was the speed, the other one is the valuation. So, and I also want to do it quick. So that's how we actually gotten Diamond to come in on the second round.
And okay, I understand. That means that one of them, obviously, for Khazanah was strategic. The other one, of course, is the speed of the deal and the valuation. And it is good that you mentioned that, if you borrow too much, you're also running a risk for the business. So in terms of like winning the market, now you have more than 50% of the market. So the way you marketed when you started, what you told us, and the way you market now is different. So what are some of the marketing campaigns or some of the winning strategies that you think you took in order to reach this level of market share?
I think this, what happened is that once we started our UHT line, up through the second round funding, we built a very advanced factory in Muazzam, Pahang that through Tetra Pak line, we're able to pack our fresh milk or all our product in an aseptic manner whereby distribution no longer a challenge for us. So I think once we realize that we are able to reach out to every corner in, like what you say now, Kajang, you can find our product everywhere, for example. So once we roll out, at that point of time, I realized that it's already time, it's up for us to actually strengthen our brand to some ad spending. And that is when we actually, the last 3 years, we actually gone to Astro. The one big one that we did was the Gegar Vaganza. I think Gegar Vaganza is really a very high impact TV reality show, right? That has got one of the highest rating. So that sponsor itself for 2 consecutive years has really brought us to a lot of new customers because they are very Malay based. And then what happened when we do that, and then we can see a very strong sales coming in from the East Coast. When you can literally see the sales increasing. So I think that was very useful. And then last 2 years, we also decided to divert some of the budget because to the Chinese market, for example. So we start to go to TV8 advertisements and things like that, Loi Tuan or whatever, all the Chinese one. So that one was more designed to capture the Chinese market. In fact, this morning I was talking to my agency as I was like, hey, I said, Siva, I said, I want you to design me a program. I just want to target the Indian community. I said, this is one thing. He said, Mr. Loi, I've been in the advertisement line for the last 20, 30 years. There's no single one come and tell me that they want to do ads to accommodate the Indian market. So I said, the Indian people drink a lot of milk and they eat a lot of yogurt. So I say, it's time for me to pick them up, So I think in terms of advertisement, I think we start to spend in the last 2-3 years.
How much money do you spend of your revenue in advertisements then?
I think about 2% now. At the moment, it's about 2%. We allocated about 2%. Like this year, for example, we probably ended up spending close to about 10 million. So we got 1 or 2 more big campaign coming out. So let's say, for example, banana milk, and we just finished our Merdeka campaign, and now in the pipeline we have another banana campaign. In fact, we signed up the Miss Fazura and one K-pop singer. So they are supposed to we're supposed to start the shooting soon already.
I tell you, your banana milk is amazing. You know why? My daughter, after drinking once, keep on telling me, Mommy, can you go and buy the banana milk? The kurma milk also is amazing. So your R&D, who does the R&D and how do you decide what new products they need to come up with?
Yeah, I think in terms of product development, in my company, I think I usually will insist that every single ingredient I need to be approved. I have to be approved by me because I'm very particular about the ingredient. So usually what we do is that, let's say for example, when we launched our kurma, it was so successful. Asmi and I come up with this idea of doing the kurma. So what we did is that we find pati kurma, which is the date concentrate, right? You see, the market, everything is flavored. Everything is flavored. It's all artificially flavored. So it's like you want to call it a strawberry milk, or you want to call it whatever. It's not even, there's not even strawberry in there, or the mango or whatever. It's just essence and flavor. So we decided that if you were to do a kurma milk, particularly for the Muslim Ramadan, that you want to go sahur, right? You want to drink something that can keep you up till evening. You're still very alert. So that's how we actually use our pati kurma. And then, for example, our banana, the market, every single banana that you see is, if you read the label, some of them, they don't even have banana inside there, for God's sake. It's just essence, it's just artificial flavor. In our case, we use banana puree. But unfortunately, I still have to call it banana flavor milk because the regulations say that anything is flavored, you have to call flavor. Although we disagree with that, but we got no choice, but we have to comply as well. So we actually call it banana flavor milk. But the truth is that if you look at our ingredient list, we use banana puree. So in other words, what you're drinking is a real banana milk come with the banana puree. So I think in terms of development of product, say for example, our yogurt, we're going to relaunch our yogurt with a new packaging. All our yogurt, when you see the ingredient, the food prep down there, right? They are all real food prep. They have no preservative. When we get our supplier to supply to us, the yogurt food prep. So when we tell them, hey, you cannot put in the preservative, they were like, what? Why you don't want to put preservative? I say, no, because it's farm fresh product, we cannot have preservative. So we have to insist them to take out the preservative from our food prep, and then we need to ship them in chill, and then we have to store them in chill. So in terms of cost, it's slightly higher in terms of storage and all this sort of thing. You can't just leave it outside, without the chiller. So I think that is where we are quite particular in terms of how we develop our product.
Yeah. I think the quality is actually very important because I think people will believe in the quality. You know that for me, I always look at the how many grams of carbs are in a yogurt, right? So I only buy Greek yogurt, but I also buy farm fresh yogurt because if you look at farm fresh yogurt, the amount of carbs is very low, So it just shows that you guys are doing a lot of the right things, and maybe that's actually how you gain traction as well. Besides the marketing, like you say, from word of mouth, from people believing in the product. There are a lot of questions, but I want to ask you one question first before I address some of these questions, right? You see, you are in Malaysia, and then now you're in Australia and Singapore. How do you decide that when you want to expand to other markets, and what are the challenges of deciding which market?
I think Australia, we are not so much in Australia for their domestic market. We are more in terms of strategic investment because, as I said, that over the years we've grown so reliant on Australia, both genetic as well as the raw materials. So that's where we invested in Australia. Well, Singapore is to us is just our backyard. It's like so just across. So Singapore is our natural market for us to expand. And so for now, I think our concentrations are, we do export some to Brunei, but that is of a lesser volume. But I think in the coming next couple of years, we will be very focusing on Indonesia and Philippines as well, because these are the markets that give us a lot of opportunities as well. So we were thinking that I think for now, I think the very immediate one will be Indonesia. There's one market that we are actually looking at here.
But actually the strategy, right, even for us last time when we joined Endeavour, we were thinking of like, we need to expand overseas. But our board of mentors were telling us that, hey, if you haven't dominated the Malaysian market, it's not easy going overseas. And we decided to dominate the Malaysian market. So I think it's a good strategy. I mean, since 2009 until now more than 50% of the market is actually an amazing feat. So there's a question by Kiwei, right? He says that, has it always been smooth sailing with all the shareholders? And if there were differences in opinions, how was it managed? Especially when some of the shareholders are the big guys, burning your own money is definitely hard. So how would you answer that?
I think managing shareholders' expectation obviously is not easy, right? So because, and especially when you have big, large institutions like people like Khazanah or the Diamond, for example, right? They have a different sets of way of looking at things, particularly on the compliance side, right? So I think from business side, I think so far we are coming along well, because I think number one, if you don't have the numbers, right, however sweet talk also not going to make the difference because your numbers are not there. So I think number one, we have so far, I think, thank God, our relationship with our shareholders, all our major shareholders, are coming along well, because I think first thing, they know we are very hardworking. We work very hard to deliver the numbers and things like that. So year in, year out, they see how we actually devote our time, and the team, as a whole, how much times and effort that we put in. So I think in that sense, they don't really doubt us. I think integrity is very important as well. So I think in partnership, I think you need to demonstrate you have to be a very high man with very high integrity, because if there's no trust, right, nothing works already. Yeah. So I think in that sense, so that worked out quite well, in the sense that they actually gave me a lot of free hand, and they also know sometimes if you are too, I won't use the word kacau lah. If you're too restrictive, everything becomes, everything I need to refer. Then you actually kill the entrepreneurship in that person, right? So you want him to be very, very agile. You want him to be very bold in making decisions, and not so things like. So I think it comes along that way. As long as you work within the boundaries, the kind of, okay, Loi, what are the do and don'ts and things. So as long as you operate within that, I think, and if you have the number to show to your stakeholders, I think usually you don't have problem.
Yeah. So I like what you're saying, the having integrity, trust, and actually being successful in terms of your business, and hitting the numbers. But who plans the strategy, and how do you guys ensure that you're the market leader? who sets the vision, direction, and how do you ensure that the company is achieving these numbers?
I think in our sense, I think as me, myself, and one or two of our key people, right? I think we internally also do a lot of brainstorming in terms of identifying who is our competitors, where is their strength, where is our strength, and where is our weakness, and things like that. So I think that is constantly been brainstormed among the key senior people, right? So it can be formal or informal, for example. And I think one thing that come out of it, we kind of know a very, very specific strength of our company. We know that we are a local company, we are integrated, we are very agile, we can get product to market very, very quick, for example. And I think that basically the distribution network is another one thing that we actually considering as well. You also have to think in terms of which channel are you going. Every channel have got a different strategy. It's not like you have one format and then it fit for all, right? So in our case, over the years, as I say, that we started from chill, and we are very modern trade centric, very, very focused on modern trade. And then we move on to HoReCa market. HoReCa market was a market that we never touched earlier on, because you don't even have enough milk to meet your customer demand while you want to go cafe, right? So with the Australian support, we are able to go into the cafe market, the boba tea, for example. Today, if you go to Family Mart, for example, you realize that they are all using our coffees, our milk to make their coffee and things like that. So the HoReCa market also over the years also developed to a very significant portion, whereby I have a lady which is ex-F&N marketing manager, so she manages that segment of the business. Then we move on to the convenience shop, the 7-Eleven, the Petronas, the Shell alike. So we need a different different teams to manage it. That was more logistic headache than anything else, because to reach a few thousand outlets in Shell and Petronas, right? You need a different set of skill again. So then we have our home dealers and all this sort of thing. So I think basically it's like to identify the thing and then coming up with different marketing strategy in terms of especially the advertisement spending, right? Where you want to divert the dollars to target that particular market.
So there's a question here about distribution, right? And also the logistic. Okay, so I think these questions is like, say if you start Farm Fresh today, how will you approach your distribution strategy differently? This is from Psyche. And then would the current crazy high logistic costs help a locally produced product compete better against imported brands?
I hope you don't mind repeat another time.
Okay, start the first question first, okay?
Yeah.
If you start Farm Fresh today, how would you approach your distribution strategy differently if you had started today instead of like 2008, 2009?
I think I wouldn't do it very differently, because I think if you started from chill, right, that is where we actually started from. And if you were to do chill market, it's the modern trade is the only market that you can actually look at, right? So mini marts and all this sort of thing, you will not even consider the rural and all this sort. You will not even you want to go to where the concentrations are located, right? For example, the Klang Valley. So I think modern trade is still a very, very important. I think today the modern trade still consider about maybe 45% of our business is still very, very important to us in that sense. So I think I wouldn't do much different from that what I actually started with. However, because of the ambient, the UHG categories that we expand after this the phase 2, we go from chill to ambient, right? And that one required to give you the flexibility, you are able to reach out to a different segment of market with the same product. Yeah.
So what about the logistic cost? Because basically the second question was, would the current crazy high logistic costs help a locally produced product compete better against imported brands?
I think logistic costs, in our case, I think, how to put it, yeah. It's, I think, probably about 3% of our distribution costs. If you want to say very high, it's not really that high, because because for chill category, you actually need a cold chain. That is where, everywhere along the value chain, you have to make sure that everything is in cold chain, right? And then in JB, we were quite fortunate in the sense that you see, in the logistic cost, you have the front haul and the back haul. So in our case, we are more of back haul charges because there is a lot of cargoes that coming from Klang Valley to the south for all the chill and frozen stuff, and they go back empty, right? So when they go back empty, that is where Farm Fresh actually pick up a very, very low rate. To give you an example, our 40-footers chill truck from Johor Bahru Lakin, the place I'm located now, to KL only cost me 1,200 ringgit. So I think that also, in a sense, that give us a bit of advantage in a sense that the location that we are located, although Klang Valley is our very important market, we are able to ship back at a very competitive. We got very competitive rate. So if you're imported, right, I think depends on where you land your product.
Okay, my youngest daughter, she's 6 years old. She keeps interrupting me. She says that she's drinking palm fresh now. Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At least someone can't show her face, can't see her. Okay.
Well, that is, we call these girls Generasi Farm Fresh. They all grow up
Generasi
with,
Farm Fresh.
Generasi Farm Fresh. We hope.
I go remove my background so you can see her. Yeah. She's very shy now. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Where was I just now? I was at. Okay. I think there's another question that's interesting, right? What's the company's experience in going through to address the sustainability aspect of the business? Is sustainability a luxury only larger companies could afford? I think sustainability is in a few things. One is that, is the company profitable, and is the company sustainable?
I think this is a very interesting question. Now, in fact, we actually putting a lot of thoughts and effort into ESG, for example, right? Two things. I think number one, I think we are very mindful as we grow. And dairy, you have a lot of waste, right? The amount of poo that the cow comes up, so they eat and poo, for example. So there is a lot of these waste that need to be managed. So in our case is that we want to make sure that as we grow, we do not want to be a nuisance to the people, to our neighbors, to our downstream people, whereby all your waste just dump into the river and then flow down, and then I think one of my competitor lately also, you can see the drain, so many fish died, right? So we don't want that kind of thing to happen. So what we did is that with the amount of waste that we generate in our farming, we invested a lot of money to ensure that all the slurries are actually diverted to a pit, whereby we actually decant it. We use the decanter separator to separate the solid and then the water separately. So, and because dairy farming, it's a very big area that we require. So growing grass, right? Besides fertilizer, you also need water to grow. So what we did is that we invest a lot of money to pump our waters, kilometers after kilometers, to transfer across to all the 300 acres to ensure that this not only a water that can help to regenerate our grass well and healthy, it also nourish the soil as well. So we pump them, from one station to another station to irrigate all the grass to make sure that our cow get all this organic grass. Now, I think we by doing that, we not only save a few million ringgit. I think 1 year I could have easily saved 2-3 million ringgit on chemical fertilizer. And then what happened is that the soil also getting better over the years, right? So all the solid we actually, if some of you can come to our farm, we are very big in cacing. I think we're probably one of the biggest cacing grower. We grow a lot of earthworm. And then this earthworm actually feed on all the cow solids, right? And then they then cast out a worm casting. So worm casting is probably one of the best organic fertilizer Mother Earth has generated. So all this worm casting, we then actually spread back to the paddock to make sure that all the grass is being nourished. So it's like one cycle. So we spend many millions on the irrigations, the power and things like that. I think that also enables us to use the land in a very sustainable manner. Because if you continue to use chemical fertilizer, not only the cost, but you're also continuing to poison the soil as well. So I think that's what we are doing. Yeah. And then cow-wise, for example, I think just 3 months ago, we are the first company in Asia to have our farm-wide, all the five farms to be accredited with certified humane farming. In other words, we are the first one in Asia that dairy cow farm is being accredited to ensure that all these animals, all the ladies in our farms are well taken care of. Yeah.
Actually, it's good. It's good that you are thinking of sustainability. You know, keeping our environment, looking to ESG and all that. So, one question that by Daryl. All right, I think this is a very interesting question for everyone. Also, what's your thoughts about online shopping or e-commerce versus offline retail sales for FMCG products?
I think this is something that we really learned last year, that this COVID's really changed the landscape. The online sales, I think, is something that we cannot ignore. But however, in the past years, this is one segment that we really, I would say that we don't really focus, right? And during the lockdown, I remember we tried to be smart and offered online sales. We go on to tell people, okay, if you cannot go out from your house, and if you want to order, you can order from us online. And goodness me, our online order was literally flooded. I think like one week plus, we got almost 750,000 ringgit order coming into our system. And we were so overwhelmed. We promised customer 3 hari, 3 days we will deliver to you. Some of them never get the product for 3 weeks. So I think it's not so simple. So we learned that. Then we quickly shut down our website because we know we cannot take the orders, right? So I think this is something that the online order, we are also thinking through as to how to do it, because we have a very unique distribution system, which we call it the home dealer system. Basically, is delivering to your house. So we are also trying to analyze as to see whether should we have a mall in Shopee or have a official mall in Lazada, for example. So these are the things that we are still evaluating at this point of time as to see how we can do it better.
Yeah, I think there's one more question that I find is going very interesting before my last question, all right, is that your distribution is already covering almost every area, like supermarkets, stockists from PB Yusof, all right? How do you see scaling your business 2 times from here? Is it more of product expansion, or you want to focus on less product variation but geographical expansion instead?
Now, I think this is something that I remember, 9 years ago, we were like doing 9 million ringgit business a year at a point of time. And then fast track 9 years later, we were doing like 9 million ringgit business a week. So that shows us that, how much we have grown in the space of 9 years just in Malaysian context. We didn't even go anywhere. Just in Malaysian context itself, has given us that opportunity to grow ourselves. So if you look at Farm Fresh, as I say, that the most significant difference is that we were in chilled category, and then we move on to the ambient category. So that is the main 2 pillars of our growth. One is chilled, beside the product extension over the years, but we also go into ambient. So I think that is the 2 most significant difference in our distribution, in our product range. Now, in terms of product, I think Malaysia, owing to the strength of our brand and the brand affinities, there's one research company that was commissioned by one of these fund, to actually look at the health brand check and things like that. So I think from that report, it does tell us that the Farm Fresh brand affinities are very, very strong. And then we should actually go on to capitalize our brand strength in Malaysia. So distribution-wise, through our home dealers, we're now able to reach. You can go to Felda Karatong, you can go to Felda Chini, you can, even very, very small town, you will realize that even Kedai Runcit today have our Farm Fresh UHT milk. So I think we have reached our penetration rate has actually reached very, very deep. Now, the AC Nielsen report doesn't capture us in that sense. So if you look at the AC Nielsen published report, those are all supermarket, mini markets, and the kind of thing, or the convenience store. But there's one segment of our home dealers that was not captured. So if you look at it in a sense that because of the geography which our penetration is quite deep, coming years, I think next year probably we will come out with a very, very big SKU, which I think that will give us another leg of growth, because at the moment, just too many mothers are still feeding the breast milk to their kids. After their breastfeeding, there are many still feeding the grow out milk, which is packed with sugar. Unbelievable, the amount of sugar inside that. If you look at it, right, and the amount of maltodextrin that they put inside there, and then they have the bloody audacity not even declare as sugar, for example, right? They put down the zero sucrose, padahal inside there maybe 60% is sugar, and they come in a different name, for example, maltodextrin. So
yeah, I love what you're doing if that's the case, because yeah, I think babies and kids need proper nutrition.
Yeah, so
yes.
we will roll out next year, I think, with liquid gum. We call it the liquid roll out milk. A lot of mothers still felt, in fact, to me, the full cream milk is good enough. But of course, if you want it fortified, it's even better. So in our case, that we are able to produce liquid milk, UHT, without any sugar added with it. It's just a whole full cream fresh milk. And then we'll probably add on the DHA, the vitamin D, and whatever, the vitamin fortification. And then I think this will be a very big growth for us in the coming years. So it's going to be a war, because it's a very, very big category that we're going in.
Yes, baby milk formula, I would say, and it's not no formula, the one that you're providing is a huge category altogether for babies and kids. And if you can promote it well, it will be great. And obviously, there was a question that Sean wanted to ask you also. Would you consider co-branding with a local diaper company? Now, I think, Sean, you can talk to Loi separately. So, my last question, all right, because time is up already. So you already said that you have this Farm Fresh home dealer network, and I think maybe 25% of the sales actually goes through this, and it's some form of your social impact or social enterprise, right? Can you maybe tell us what you're doing there, and how do you start getting involved in this, and what's the impact you had to these micro entrepreneurs?
I think this is probably one of the best things that come out of Farm Fresh brand, right, along our value chain. I remember 6 years ago, Azmi and I was talking about, building up this network. And incidentally, Azmi actually coming from the backdrop of MLM sales before. So he was involved in direct selling. So he got a bit of backdrop in terms of how it works. So we were talking about it. And then it was accumulation of a problem that you remember years ago, it was in social media, our milk went sour, and then Timothy Tia go onto the social media and create a huge havoc. So we're thinking that, wow, sometimes our milk without preservative sometimes can be so sensitive. How about getting some home dealers delivered to their neighbors and things. That's how the idea was conceived. And then we come out with this Kurma milk as our first test ground to appoint some of these housewives, to actually test it out. So you see, and I think Azmi and I both also never think that we will reach to this scale. That today this network actually form almost 35% of our business. I think last year they did almost close to 150 million business. So, and it was so high impact in the sense that all of them, I think we got about 38, 40 stockists, and then we got 800 home dealers, and then underneath the home dealers have another 1,000 over agents, so 2,000 over of them. And on average, they can make between 800 ringgit, some of them making 2,000-3,000 ringgit or 1,000-2,000 ringgit. But because it is a lot of them are rural based, so that additional 1,000 or 2,000 ringgit additional household disposal income is really life changing. Yeah. And we realized that I think you can grow, right? You can grow your company, you can be profitable, but at the end of the day, also I think there are times where we need to pause and think, how about our communities? How about the people around us, for example? So in this case, we are very proud because we are able to share that margin, along the value chain, right, to some of these people. Because if today, if you want to be a distributor for those multinational company, right, you got no 500,000 or 1 million bank guarantee. If you got no 5 truck, you can forget to become the distributor, right? And then all these big multinational company, they only wanted to pick the big distributor because you have less credit risk. They can give you the bank guarantees. They have big warehouse. Then they will squeeze the margin of distributor and continue to consolidate. We are actually going completely opposite directions. We actually go out. We give opportunity to people. We take credit risk. We, of course, so far we don't have that many bad apples over the years, right? Most of them pay us and things like that. So we go great length to help them. Some of them, we even have to buy the truck for them because they can't even get borrowing. So we will, we use our name and then you installment until such time you can take the truck, and we give them the credit. Some of them do 30 for 50,000 today. They do 500,000. They don't even know how to bookkeeping the account. So our accountant need to travel around to teach them how to do the accounts and filing. So I think that is something that I think we are very proud of today. We're able to impact so many people's life. At the same time, we are also profitable. So it's not like one-way traffic. You help people and then you're worse off. You help people, you're worse off. In this case, when we help people, and we are benefiting out of it as well.
Yeah, I love that. It is an ecosystem play lah. Nowadays, I always tell people, there's this thing called vertical integration, which means that you are not the best in what you're doing. There are other people, like either channels, products, people they can work with. So, and to do this social enterprise and to benefit so many people, especially at this type of lockdown situation, is amazing. It's an amazing story, and it's also for the rest of us to think of, how can we not just benefit ourselves, but benefit our community? But anyway, Loi, I think our time is up. Some of them are saying, 4 o'clock already. Loi is still talking. Okay, Loi. Thank you so much for your forthrightness. It's actually amazing talking to you. I think, Fira, you have anything else you want to add to everybody else?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Loi and Warhan. I think this is one of the most engaging sessions where we had so many questions that we couldn't even finish all of the questions, right? So I think thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. If you wanted to look back at the session again, we will post the session itself on YouTube. And as mentioned, this is our last Blitzscaling session of the year. We hope to see you soon next year or possibly in the next few months or so. If you want to receive any prompt updates for the next Endeavour events, feel free to follow us on our social media pages. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Loi. Thanks, Warhan.
Thank you.
Just last thing I want to say, if we were to talk to Loi, we can talk until the cows come home, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You need to stop him. Otherwise, the cow come home. I'm still not done yet. I will go on and on. Yeah.
Okay.
Stay safe,
bye.
everyone.
Thanks, Warhan.
Thank you, Warhan.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.